I think it's super imperative to constantly be learning. And in this episode, we got Josh Stanton of Screw the 9 to 5. Got a page full of notes. And what I love about learning from Josh is he's someone who has really figured out content. And I think that's something that so many of us are trying to do. And he breaks it down into really, really critical and cool steps. So, what are you going to learn in this episode? Content topics garner a specific type of reader. And the way that he talks about this is so incredible. Let's talk about the cartel mafia. I mean, that's basically what he's going to talk about. It's crazy. 96% of actions are unconscious. 96% of actions are unconscious. They're habits. It's crazy. We just do them. I just finished the book, The Power of Habit. What's crazy is when I recorded this interview with Josh, I hadn't read that book. And so now reviewing that again, gosh, is that so true. And how, let's just say this, techniques to grow a Facebook group and a ton more. I take notes. You're going to take notes. It's Josh. Screw the 9 to 5. So Screw the 9 to 5. Was there a reason that you came up with that name? Like, did you go through something super miserable? What happened?
It's because F the 9 to 5 was taken, and so we got Screw the 9 to 5. No, but in all seriousness, like what happened was we were getting married that year, and we built a business, like an online business in like the skincare industry. Actually, it was quite funny. We got into that space, and then we get to the end of the year where we got married. We're out on our it was basically on our wedding week, and this was before we were like moving overseas, and we wanted to start some kind of like blog just to like talk about the journey of like what it is to like have this kind of business and like live overseas and that kind of stuff. And it was mainly like a way just for kind of us to like get our ideas and things out there, and also to connect with other people when we're overseas too. Like when you have a blog like that, it's a lot easier to connect with other like-minded people. So we were just sitting there, we were like drinking rum or something. We were in Costa Rica, by the way, when we got married, sitting there drinking some rum. And then Jill was like, it's kind of like, what if we went with something like Screw the 9 to 5? And we was like, that's it. Absolutely. Which we registered it straight away, and we got started from that point on.
Love it. Costa Rica's a fun place. I've been there. My honeymoon was there. Where my honeymoon was in Costa Rica.
Oh, was it? Yeah, we got married.
Where did you stay there?
Guanacaste. We're in Tamarindo.
Okay.
Like the surfing kind of town. Have you been there?
That's exactly where I went.
Yeah, it's cool. I love that town. Like it's just so chill, just full of like people surfing and just really cruisy kind of place.
Yeah, it was awesome. So how long did you guys do the online business for the skincare business, or around what year was that too?
We started that one at the beginning of 2012, and we ran that business for about like 3 years. But actually, that kind of expanded. We built this publishing business, so we expanded out into like lots and lots of different niches. In the end, we had like 34 different sites. They were just like content type sites. We were just producing, get traffic, referring traffic on to other merchants. So we ran that business for just over 3 years, and we actually ended up selling like most of those sites off, which is kind of cool. And then we focused primarily on Screw the 9 to 5 because that was kind of the thing that we loved doing. And we'd already kind of like solved the issue of like learning how to make money online. So we were kind of in this fortunate position. We were like, we don't need to like do something to make money now, but what do we want to do that we really love doing, but also makes money at the same time? And we just loved Screw the 9 to 5, and that's what we continued with.
When you were selling the businesses, how did you figure out how to price them, stuff like that?
It's actually really easy, and there's a lot of different brokers you can kind of go with. So in the end, you're usually going to get, depending on the type of income stream you're getting and the type of traffic you're getting to those sites, you can get anywhere from 20 to about 40x monthly, whatever the revenue is. So for those ones, we sort of average about 20x on each of them.
That's pretty cool. So with the Screw to 9 to 5, I get the premise of it. When people are kind of searching for specific types of content, like what are the most popular posts?
So I think like the interesting thing, okay, the most popular post is quite funny. This is a really good lesson for everyone to learn. Whatever content you put out there, you will attract a certain type of person, right? So I remember we were living in Thailand on this little island called Koh Tao, and in Koh Tao, the whole island is basically run by like these mafia families in Thailand. No joke. There's like 5 families that run the entire island, and I remember I wrote a post. It was just like an idea I had in my mind, and it was something like 5 lessons I've learned from the Koh Tao mafia. So anyway, I wrote this article. It didn't go that well then, but then all of a sudden, like there was this incident with the mafia about a year later, where like apparently like they killed a backpacker or something like that, and we were ranking on page 1 for Koh Tao Mafia on Google. So then all of a sudden, we just like wake up one day, we check out traffic on analytics, and it was like 100,000 people or something. We're like, what is going on? And we check it, and like all these people who are searching for news around the incidents of the Koh Tao Mafia were coming to this page that was telling them like business lessons learned from the Koh Tao Mafia. So we just got like hammered in the comments from people being like, you're so insensitive. How dare you do this? And blah, blah, blah. We're like, yo, we wrote this article before any of this shit happened. So I apologize.
That's pretty fine. So,
but like, I mean, like now it's very different. So now, I guess the lesson we learned is with the content we produce now is it's usually around the lifestyle of the entrepreneur. And there's 3 areas that we like to cover. There's business, obviously. But then there's also like life, and there's also health as well. So we're big proponents of like more of a balanced lifestyle when it comes to business. As opposed to like the kind of people who are like just hustle, grind it out, do it to make money. We're like, no, like why would you do that for? Just destroy your life. We're all about trying to create that balance for those 3 areas. So that's the type of content we produce.
I think that word hustle is become such a buzzword. I think everyone's used it in some form. I think, and I don't know why people think you have to work 24/7. Right? It's and grind so hard that your life is miserable. And I think a lot of times when people do that, they don't even get to the goal that they want because they just work so hard in that they don't even get like solid work done. It's just because they're constantly tired and stuff like that. So of those 3, business, life, and health, which one of those are you most passionate about? Is there one or?
I think the business one we've been focusing most of our time and attention on, just because I think like a lot of people generally come to us for that kind of advice. But we've only just recently started to expand out into the other areas. And really like the areas that I love talking about are actually health and are actually like the lifestyle elements too, you know, like travel, relationships, how do you balance like your family life with your business? Like all these types of very interesting and very important subjects that I don't think people talk enough about. I actually personally think that there's quite an issue as far as like mental health goes in the entrepreneur space, where people are just focused so heavily on their business and just making money for the sake of making money with it, that they're losing themselves. They're losing like who they are. And trust me, the more you go down that road of just being hyper focused on business, the more you lose the other aspects of what it means to be you. So I've had to like go through almost like a detox almost from like just focusing on business all the time to like look at the other areas of my life. Like my health was deteriorating and I'm like, this is stupid. Like, why am I doing this for? And then I was looking at my relationships and my friends and like what I love doing, and I wasn't doing any of that anymore. And so I restacked the values. Initially it was like business, then it was like, you know, health, then like life, right? So now what we do is we're like life, you know, so it's friends, family, it's like number 1, most important thing. Then health comes under that, and then business comes under that. And what we've found is when you do that, when I've done that, at least from my own perspective, because I can't speak for anyone else, just myself, is that our business is actually done better. I'm spending less time on the business, but the time I do spend on the business is super effective.
It's really interesting. I am in
Yeah.
probably with this business that I'm doing, probably year 7 now, I guess. And my blocks, those 3 blocks have been all over the place.
Yeah.
At the beginning of this year, I'm not into New Year's resolutions or anything like that, but I'd recently gotten married and I was like, you know, my health is probably important. I probably need to start going to the gym. So I've gone to the gym every day this year, right? I've lost 30, 40 pounds so far. I got a lot more to lose. But it's interesting because I think what you're getting at, and people don't believe this, and it's really hard until you do it, is when your health is up there good, other things just line up because you're more efficient on other places.
Yeah.
You're not wasting your time doing stuff. Like I'm adding more shows to my podcast. I work out every day. I mean, I've worked out 150 days straight, something like that. Like no days off, and business is better. I'm making better decisions. I'm able to do it. Like it's very interesting. And I was a former athlete who just decided to jump off the deep end, I guess. And so it really is interesting that you have those blocks the way that you do. Is there a technique that you use or kind of consult people with on how to start getting that mindset to the business kind of as the bottom instead of maybe the top?
Yeah, I think it comes down to identity. A lot of people are trying to like force themselves to change through action, and it just doesn't work. Like if someone's trying to change, the reason why it doesn't work is like this, right? There's a lot of studies to prove this, that something like 96% or more of the actions that we take are unconscious, meaning they're all habitual. Like the words I'm saying right now, I'm not thinking about these words. This is just how I speak, right? And those habits are formed at like the identity level, right? At a really deep level. And so one of the things we kind of look at is we can say, okay, let's just do an exercise right now to figure out what your values are, what you value really strongly right now. Once you figure out that, we can sort of look at it and say, okay, well, these are your top 3 values right now, but who you want to be is this person right here. So maybe we need to adjust what these values are. Once you adjust those and you say, for example, if someone is having problems making money, right? Someone's having problems making money, really rudimentary topic, right? Having issues making money. And then you do a really deep dive into their value system. Most of the time, you'll actually find out that they don't even have making money as like a high value in their life, right? So it's like, it's not even on their top 10 list. This is what happens most of the time. But as soon as you say, okay, cool, well, how do you expect to make lots of money if you don't even value making lots of money right now? It's not going to happen for you. Or how do you think you'll change your health if you don't even value your health right now? So it's about like kind of looking at it and saying, this is who you are right now. This is who you're being right now. This is who you want to be. So let's focus on these different values instead. And then from there, we can start changing things at like more of a habitual level. And we can talk about that. I mean, I love talking about habits and how to adjust habits.
There's a book on my to-do list. It's something about habits. It's a yellow book cover with a wheel. It's not coming to mind.
It's like, isn't it like The Power of Habits or something like that? Or
have you read something like that?
I've only like read the synopsis on it, and I understand like the theory with it, which is like it's like a trigger followed by behavior followed by reward. Like that's the habit loop.
Yeah.
Essentially. Yeah. It's. I mean, that's absolutely correct. That's exactly how everything works. Everything we do right now, it's kind of funny is if you really sit down and think about it, whenever you make a decision and you act a certain way, and then try and think about what the reward is. Sometimes it's tough to figure out what the reward is. Sometimes it's like just self-acknowledgement or acknowledgement by others. You know, like if you get mad at someone and you get triggered, you get mad at them, then your behavior is you yell at them. But the reward is that like you want them to acknowledge that you're right. And so you'll just keep that habit going over and over again, right? So the only way to break that habit, and I think he talks about this in that book actually, is to like break it at that trigger level, which I have some like techniques that I use for myself, but I know everyone kind of has their own strategies.
I think that habits are really interesting. When I'm trying to consult people or coach people through specific pieces with habits, I try and use examples of the habits that they're already doing.
Yeah.
And then one example that I like to use is TV shows. So like, that you're going to watch, I don't know, some random TV show on Tuesday at 8:00.
Yeah.
And you've made that your habit. So how in your brain can you make this? And I did this with someone yesterday. I was like, you tell me you want to meet new people.
Yeah.
Yet you don't do anything to meet these new people. So start scheduling this habit the same way you would schedule to watch TV tonight.
Yeah. He's like, it's like replacing it.
Yeah. He's like, it's really interesting. I was like, yeah. And if you think about it, people then expect that scenario to happen when it's scheduled kind of in their brain. And so like whether it's putting it on your calendar or just start telling yourself doing this. And so there's a YouTube channel called First We Feast. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but they it's an interview show, and their host Sean Evans eats progressively hotter chicken wings with famous actors or famous people, and they also eat progressively hotter chicken wings. And then the questions get harder as the wings get spicier, and some of the hottest wings are like 2 million Scoville rankings, which, if you know anything about Scovilles, it's like, I think a jalapeno is like 50 Scovilles, and some of these things are like 2 million. So it's
2 million?
Yeah, so it's something ridiculously hot. But my point is this: not only do I love the show, but they know that, or their show releases at 11 o'clock on every Thursday on YouTube. And by getting those people to come back there every Thursday at 11,
yeah,
they know that they can hopefully get YouTube to see it, to spike it, to then get them to trending, so that they can, get more views on there each and every episode. And so they didn't used to do that, but then they realized when they started this rhythm, it really helps people. So what are some things, kind of from a rhythm or a habit standpoint, that you have started to schedule in your day-to-days?
I want to like kind of preface by talking about the marshmallow test. You know the marshmallow test? Which I think is like,
I don't.
So the marshmallow test it was done in like the 70s or something like that by this like psychiatrist. And he took like a bunch of kids, like really young kids, like, under the age of 7 basically. And he put them in a room, and there was one marshmallow sitting in front of them on the desk. And then the person walks out of the room, but before they walk out, they say, "Hey, I'm just leaving for 10 minutes. But don't eat the marshmallow. And when I get back, I'm going to give you a second marshmallow." Right? So they were playing a game of willpower to like test these kids' willpower. And so some of the kids would like just eat it straight away, and they're like, whatever. And then some of the kids would not. Some of the kids would wait, and they would have that second marshmallow. And then what happened is he followed those kids for like the next 20 years or something. And he found out that the kids who waited for the second marshmallow were the ones who generally were much more successful in their lives, right? But the problem is, and this is the big problem, the problem is that was only 10% of the kids. The other 90%, which is like only, what he's basically saying is only 10% of people have the ability to have strong willpower. For everyone else, we need to kind of have a different approach. And so I've kind of like looked at my life from a different approach of being like, I need to change my habits through willpower, through like forcing myself to change, right? And I looked instead at trying to understand how the brain works as far as habits go. So coming full circle, once I understood that, it made it a little bit easier for us to like look at how we build habits with our audience. So for us, we do the same thing. Our content comes out at the exact same time every single week. We have a Facebook group. That Facebook group has like the same types of posts, not exactly the same, but the same types of posts at the same time every single day. So we're always in there communicating with them at the same time. So I understand how important habits are for every single person right now. And yeah, I would say like our whole business is kind of built around that whole structure.
So if I heard that right, so with your, specifically on the Facebook groups, so you're posting a similar type of post every day at a very specific time every day, and the only thing that's really changing is the creative on that, or the actual article, but everything else is kind of focused. So like, let's just, I don't know what it is, but let's say it's a motivational post. So every day you're going to post some sort of motivational post. That post is going to change from a creative or the copy standpoint every day, but at 10 a.m. every single day, and again, I don't know exactly what time it is, but that post is going to be there. So people expect it and be there, and they show up.
It's like the experience doesn't change. The experience stays the same, but the actual content changes. Exactly.
That's good. Why does that work for you? Do you think?
Why does it work?
Yeah.
I remember, I don't know why it works, but I remember reading a book called E-Myth. Have you read E-Myth before? And in there, he talks about this story, how he went to this barber and he had this most incredible experience for the first time around. And he goes in and like, there was like a beer next to him, and like the guys paid so much attention to his hair, and it was this incredible experience. And he was like, this is amazing. So he booked in a time like 6 weeks later to come back in. He comes in, there's no beer sitting there. It's a different barber. It's a completely different experience. And he's like, okay, well maybe like that's just like one time. I'll try doing it one more time. So he books it again 6 weeks later, comes back in, completely different experience altogether. And he decides to not go back. Now here's the thing. What he mentioned is that the haircut he got was still like pretty much the same, but the experience he had was different. And so he didn't want to go back there anymore. So after reading that story, I think we started paying close attention to customer experience. Because I mean, it is all comes down to habit, right? People want to feel safe and comfortable to a certain degree, but they also want variety at the same time as well. So I think we pay really close attention to both those things.
And your Facebook group has like 10, 11,000 people in it, 12,000 people in it, right? Something like that? Something crazy?
Yeah, something like that. It's like 12,000 or something.
How do you
We
get that?
actually we actually had a group before that. It was like 45,000, and we shut it down to restart again.
Why'd you shut it down?
The experience. The experience was not a good one for people coming in. It was like there was not enough structure there. The rules weren't strong enough. There was like a lot of spam we were having to get rid of, and it wasn't serving our business for the amount of time we were having to invest into it. So we restarted with a clear intention of these are the rules, this is the structure we're running, and the purpose of it is to actually market and grow our business.
What are some techniques to grow a Facebook group specifically?
So it's quite funny because Facebook will grow your group for you. So in the sidebar, there's like suggested groups there. Most of the growth we see with our group actually comes just from the suggested sidebar right there, suggested groups. And the only way to like get on there more frequently is to have high engagement in your group. So the more engaged you are in your group, the more likely you will be to served up there in the sidebar, and the faster you'll grow. The other areas you want to kickstart it, the way we kickstart it was we just had links to it littered throughout the rest of our marketing channels. So if people opted in to our email list on the thank you page, there'd be a link to request access to our Facebook group. We had a link in the navigation menu for a while for Screw the 9 to 5. We put a link in on our Instagram profile and like our Facebook page. Another thing we would do is we registered, because like if you're trying to like tell someone to like join your group, you got to be like the URL is like facebook.com/groups/6543 blah blah blah, right? So we just registered a domain name called Screw Community. Actually, if you went to Screw Community right now, it would just redirect you to our Facebook group. And we just get on podcasts and people would be like, hey, where can people find you? We're like, the best way is probably just join our group, screwcommunity.com. And we just grew from there. One time we went on a podcast and I guess it was a big podcast. And that week we grew by like 4,000 members or something ridiculous just by doing that one strategy. It's crazy.
So you buy screwcommunity.com and then just forward it to the Facebook page automatically?
Yeah, just straight to the group. Easy.
I think that's smart. I just signed a book deal a few months ago. The book is in the publisher's hands now, and I'm trying. It's called Anomaly is the name of the book, and anomaly.com is taken, anomalybook is taken.com. And I'm like, I want to do that exact same technique, right? When I'm on people's shows, I'm going to be like, yeah, go to, and I don't want to be like, go to mywebsite.com/anomaly. I want to make it something super simple. And I'm like trying to find some domain. I don't want it to be like anomaly dot, some stupid URL.
.me.
Yeah,
or something
.me
like
or .us or .gov or .org or whatever. And so that has been the hard part, but maybe I'll do anomalycommunity.com. I'm going to look that up. I'm going to figure out something to do it. So how do you get onto that sidebar then on Facebook to get people on there? Is that, I know you said engagement, but are there certain keywords that you were using that were showing up other people's, or? Because it's the same kind of technique that YouTube would use, where it's like, search related videos, and they say it's, it's between your tags and your headline and your viewpoints or your view counts. And so is it something similar to that, or?
I don't think Facebook pays attention to keywords as much as like Google platforms do in that sense. I think what they're paying attention to more so is like the type of people in your group. So if like the type of people in our group are similar to the type of people in your group, then like we may show up in the suggested sidebar for people in your group, right? I think like it's more based around the individual targeting and like what their preferences are for themselves personally.
That makes sense. Yeah. So how do you track analytics in that case? How do you track engagement? How do you know what is good engagement or not?
Yeah, so I mean, you've got the Facebook groups insights there, which you can use. As far as like do we track it heavily as far as the engagement goes? Not really. But what we do track is we track the best times of the day and the best days of the week. So we know okay, this is when on Tuesday we know at like 12 at noon is like the most popular time, right? And then like on the weekends, we were noticing it's very different. And so, and also the engagement was really low on the weekends. So we started like doing different types of posts to build up the engagement. And I think that's what we pay more attention to. And then also we pay attention to like our top contributors, because those are the people we can kind of reach out to and help moderate the group and things like that too. Because ultimately, as it grows, it's almost like a rule of, it's almost like a rule. When you get to 10,000, you have to have a moderator, because it's so difficult, because people are going to start, we get like 200 or 300 members every single week that need to be checked, and actually like brought in and made sure that like they're actually suitable as far as members go. And then we get like spam, right? So the more people come in, the more likely you are to get spam. People are going to report that in the group. Then you got to go through that each day. So the more people come in, the more time it takes to manage a group. And so you really have to pay attention to those top contributors so you can actually get in touch with them and see if they want to become moderators. And a lot of them do. It's really surprising. I'm like, you don't even need to offer them anything. You're just like, hey, do you want to be a moderator and just moderate the group? And they're like, I would love to do this. You're like, okay, great. That's awesome. Thank you. So that's a really big thing for sure.
When still with the Facebook group, when you see these people that post the exact same creative every single week, does that help or hurt the Facebook groups in your opinion?
I see a lot of people use a tool like Meet Edgar, for example, which like automates the posting of these same things every single week. When you're using those third-party applications, your reach is really, really low. So if you just like, let's say that you didn't want to like post something new each day or whatever, and you want to post the same thing, like these theme days each week, if you just schedule them instead inside of the Facebook group through their platform, you'll see far better reach and engagement just by doing that one thing alone. Then whenever you're ready, if you feel like you want to pay a lot of attention to a group and you feel like you have enough support to help you there, I do recommend using like a 30-day content calendar and planning that out. It takes like one day, literally one day a month. Plan out what you're going to schedule out for the whole month and then just get it done, and then you're good to go from that point. You'll get way better results if you do that.
Yeah, I always tell people, make sure to use the tool the way it was intended to be used.
Yeah.
And there are some systems that allow you to hack the system a little bit. There are some ways that Meet Edgar can work for some businesses. They've actually, I don't know if you saw that Twitter has completely changed, so you can't post the same thing twice. So like the greatest feature of Meet Edgar was if you do a podcast and you want that piece of content to recycle, every 3 months, you actually can't do that now. Twitter doesn't allow it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like they block that?
Yeah. So if I want to be like, hey, this is this show that we're shooting right now, we post it out now, and then I want it to go again in 3 months, the exact same post, I can't do that. So then I have to reschedule, create new creative for it, create new copy each and every time. So it makes that post more meaningful and more powerful by the person who does it, which is what those tools were intended to do. But that time you then have to go back in and do it again. So
yeah, I mean, it's all time being spent, right? So if you're spending like some time like setting it up or whatever, and then it results in nothing for you, why would you even do it? Like you're literally just wasting your time having that platform. Whereas like if you're gonna do it, I always say like just commit to it. If this is one thing you want to do, commit to it or don't do it at all.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
So when you specifically say screw the 9 to 5, are you talking about the 9 to 5, like working a 9 to 5 corporate job, 9 to 5 the hours, a little bit of both, something completely different? Like how do you define screw the 9 to 5?
Yeah. So the way I can only really define it is through like a story that happened to me. When I was 19, I got back. I did like a year overseas between high school and university, and I got back and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was studying, I think my brother suggested I should become an engineer. And he's like, it's a good career path. You'll be successful at it, blah, blah, blah. You make lots of money. And I went to university and I started studying engineering, but I hated math and I still hate math. Actually, in Australia, we say maths with an S, which is quite weird. And I didn't really like science as well. And so I'm studying this thing for like 6 months straight, and I'm having to commute back and forth for like 2 hours each way. And I remember getting back one day and, my dad, who's no longer with us, he died about 12 years ago now. I walked upstairs and I remember walking to my room and I was like 19 years old, right? And he said to me, he stopped me, he's like, hey, you okay? Like, are you fine? I haven't talked to you in a while. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just tired and busy. And he's like, are you enjoying what you're studying right now? And I said, not really, no, but this is what I got to do, right? I have to become an engineer because this is the path I have to go down, right? This is what everyone does. And he said to me, this is the first time. And I think because like I was the fifth child in the family, so by the time they got to me, they were just like, yeah, just let him do whatever he wants. And so he said to me, like, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. You have a choice. You could do whatever you want to do in your life. And I think it was the first time anyone had ever like given me permission to have a choice in what I wanted to do. And so from that point, I actually went into university, quit the next day. And I never looked back. And I just remember being like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do, but at least I have a choice now of what I'm going to do. I haven't like pushed myself to like stay on the same path as everyone else. And so what Screw the 9 to 5 essentially is for me is that it led me to this kind of lifestyle where I've been able to live in like 10 different countries. I work my own hours. I have my own freedom. I love what I do, all these different things. So for me, it comes down to like giving people that choice back again. And there's a lot of people, my friends, I've talked to a lot of people who feel like they are so disempowered that they have no choice, that what they're doing in their jobs is what they need to do for the rest of their lives. And I really think that's the purpose of what we do with Screw the 9 to 5.
I love
Give them that choice.
I love that. The introduction to my book is something very similar to that, where and it wasn't because of my parents, it was society. Because I think my parents kind of led me saying, you do whatever you want to do. And I was very much an outlier. And I wasn't a bad kid, but I wasn't like a great kid. And I don't know how you were in that kind of case, but it's just so interesting to me that people are like, oh, like this is the path that you need to take, and this is what's, go to school, do well in high school, go to the university, go get a job, then that job you'll get a promotion and blah 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 blah, and like, where's the creativity in that? Where's the figuring out your life in that part? Like if everyone's doing the exact same thing, like it's not good for people. So you dropped out of school. How many semesters were you in there?
I was there for one semester, pretty much. That's I got lucky because I know a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I feel like if I got to like say halfway through the degree, I may have stayed, but because I was only 6 months in, it was easier for me to drop out at that point. Whereas I remember talking to a lot of people who got to like their third year out of 4 years, and I was like, you're in this until you're done, and then they would finish their degree, and then there was no job at the end, and they're like. But they've got all this debt, right? And I'm like, this is silly. Now you have to pay off all this debt, and you can't even get a job. So I feel like I got lucky that I was like exposed to that early on, for sure.
I think it's so I do have a degree. I did finish school, and I am still paying student loans, and I've been out of school for over a decade, and I just pay the minimum every month. And 2 of the 3 loans are done. I have 1 left. It's ridiculous. And I sit there and I talk to people and I'm like, I know why you think you need to go to school, and if you really think you need to go, then go. But when you get out and you realize that the amount of money that you're going to get at your first job isn't a lot of money, that you're going to have all this debt, that the things that you're learning actually aren't viable anymore. I mean, it's like the things that you might have learned in engineering maybe now, a few years later have completely changed, and the techniques, the way they do it, are completely different. And to me, it's just like, totally. I'd rather a bunch of people do a bunch of apprenticeships and like 3-month-long courses and boot camps than have to go somewhere for 4+ years to learn something that's so outdated and it doesn't help them. So
yeah, there's so many trappings, right? Like I realized, like when I was looking back on like those really important years. There's so many trappings from the ages of like 18 to like 25. Like you can become institutionalized very easily on. And unless you're exposed to like someone else who is kind of doing a different thing, it's very easy to get caught up in just following that lifestyle. Then all of a sudden you get to like your late 30s and you're like, still paying off my debt, hate my job, got 3 kids. What's the point in life? Like that's why these midlife crises occur. I don't even understand. I don't think it's possible to have a midlife crisis if you have a business, because you have constant crises in business that you have to get used to. So it's like a really odd approach that most people are taking, for sure.
Yeah, nothing like a good crisis. How old are you now?
32.
I'm 34. That's very cool. Is there something that you've gone through in your business, like specifically around that crisis part, that maybe made a really big impact on something that you did, a technique that you used before, or a way that you were living, and now you do it completely different?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. Like, it's almost like, I suppose, like every month there's a crisis, but you just get better at dealing with them, and you just like learn how to actually deal with them. I think when I first got started, a crisis would occur and I'd be very reactionary to it. I'd be like, of course this is going to happen. Like, we didn't do this right, we didn't do that right, and whatever. But now, like, when something happens, like, the first thing I do is look for the opportunity. So if we do run a promotion or whatever, it doesn't do that well. The first thing we do is look for the opportunity, because there's always an opportunity in everything. Uh, what's like a really big crisis? Okay, one thing I would say, last year we started building our team, and that's like a whole nother ball game. When you start growing a team, you go from being like solopreneur to like growing like multiple people on your team. There's a lot of things you have to deal with because you're dealing with other people. And so I think like we made a lot of mistakes in hiring because we didn't know who we needed to hire. And what I found out was, after going through this process and getting these people in and not acknowledging that they weren't doing good work, that now anyone we hire from this point on, actually we just are fully replacing our team right now. Anyone we hire from now on, they have to be like the kind of people that go above and beyond. And if they're not doing that, then there's not really any need for them to be in the company. And also from the standpoint of, like, the first time you think about firing someone, you heard this, like the first time you think about firing someone should be the time you fire them. Have you heard anyone say that before?
I mean, I've heard like the quick to hire, quick to fire, long to hire type of piece, which kind of sounds similar to that.
Yeah, it's like that basically. And really acknowledging that part of you as well, is like, if you're getting a bad feeling from someone, like there's chances are that's going to stay. That's going to get worse and worse over time. And we really notice that by not acknowledging it with our previous staff and bringing it to the table and saying, here's the problems, here's where we need you to be, and here's where you are right now, and you've got a month to get there. And just making it really clear for them. And if they don't get there in a month, then it's like, okay, cool. Thank you for your time. It's been great. We're gonna go down a different path right now and look for someone else, and we're gonna free up your future. It just makes everything so much easier when you take it from that kind of perspective. Because it was a struggle, man. Like, we were trying to like change like how our staff were thinking and change like their behavior and that kind of stuff. And what we realized is that there was no change in them because that's who they were. And so we needed to go out and look for people who were better than them.
Always trust your gut, right? I mean, it's
always.
It's what's really interesting is I went through a scenario just like that where, I don't know, 9 months, 12 months, I let someone stay on, and finally I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And I should have done it, like you said, during that first situation. So I guess what I'm getting at, though, is there's not a lot of content around the process of this, right? They're like, is it because, like, in the United States or something like that, like, people like freak out about unemployment and like the whole hiring and like emotions of people, because like these are real things and people probably should be fired a lot earlier. Yeah. And like, I know that I've gotten myself into a crap ton of issues because of keeping people on too long or whatever. And like, but why isn't, like, and I try and talk about this stuff because I want people to know, like, yo, this stuff happens. It's very difficult. Like, yes, emotions are a real thing, but like there's not a lot of content around this. So why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think like it's quite like you're right. Like, it's a very taboo kind of thing to sort of talk about, like hiring and firing. I found that anyway, like with any of like my business colleagues, if I try and talk to them about hiring and firing, like they're a little bit sort of, they've got their own way of doing it basically. There are a few people kind of talking about it. Like, one really great book that we went through, there's a component on it called the people component in it, is Traction. Have you read Traction before?
I have a friend who is reading that, and he literally just mentioned that yesterday. So I'm adding that to the list.
That's a sign.
It's always
definitely a sign.
Always a sign.
Yeah, so in there they have a really good component on how to deal with people, and they talk about like the importance of they do this like people analyzer type approach where like every month or so they'll analyze all their people, or their manager will analyze the people under them, and they'll look at different areas. So the main thing is they look at is, are they in line with your core values of the company? Because the core values reflect your culture, your company culture. And there's a component on setting that up in Traction as well. So look at that. Then the other part is what they call GWC, which stands for get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it. And when you're analyzing them, you're looking at like the roles that they're in. So let's say someone is like your community person. It's like, are they getting it from your perspective? Are they like fully getting it? Are they understanding what they should be doing with the community? Do they want it? Like, do they actually enjoy the role that they're in? And then finally, do they have the capacity to do it? And usually you can tell capacity based off of like how they're communicating. Like if someone says like, oh, I'm just so busy, or yeah, I've got all this stuff to do, or whatever. It's like they don't have the capacity to actually do this. And it's important to acknowledge that as well. So it's like analyze how good of a fit they are with the culture. And that's with your core values. Then we look at GWC. And so I think like that's really helped us a lot, especially the GWC, the get it, want it capacity to do it. That's a huge thing. And what we realized with our previous staff is that they scored really, really low with the GWC. And so we moved them around to different seats, and we said maybe they'll be better in this seat. So we moved them to that seat, and then they weren't better. Then we moved to another seat, then they weren't better. And it's like, okay, cool. Like that's it. Like we're done. We're going to have to find someone else.
So I was just looking it up. Is it the one that's a blue cover or the tire cover? Traction.
It's
Is it Gino
Gino Wickman.
All right.
Yeah.
I think I own the other one. Sometimes I own books. Actually, I learned when I signed the deal on my book deal, I learned that like people buy a lot of books, but only like 30% of people actually read them. And then like of that 30%, something like only like 20% of people actually read the whole book, which I thought was interesting. The last book that someone told me to read was Profit First. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Have you read that?
We actually run on Profit First still. We like a lot of it stuff we do, we run on Profit First.
I think
it's great. I think it's great.
Very interesting concept.
I think it just like frees up a lot of like the stress and worry, because we went from this point of view of being like, okay, this is how much we spent. Take that away from how much we made. Okay, that's how much we actually made. And then all of a sudden you flip it around and you say like, what is this, like revenue minus profit equals expenses, instead of revenue minus expenses equals profit. Once you do that switch there, you really look at all the expenses you have and you're like, oh crap, like this is a waste of money. This is a waste of money. Why are we doing this? You really lean out very quickly.
That's very true. And my favorite line in the book, or my aha moment in the book, is when Mike Michalowicz, I think is his name, he says something like, profit to an accountant is some arbitrary number that they just pull out. And I was like, that's interesting. I've always wondered how they do come up with these numbers. And he goes, ask at the end of your year when your CPA, your accountant, is doing your books or whatever, and they say, oh, you have $100,000 in profit, yet you have $14,000 in debt in the bank. You're like, well, I don't have $100,000. Like, where did you pull this number out? And so, it's a really cool book. Anyone that's listening should definitely check it out. I think it's just Profit First. Book.com, something like that. What's something about you or the business that you talk a lot about that we haven't talked about? Or something that you're super passionate about that we haven't talked about?
I think the thing that I'm starting to become really passionate about now is actually embracing coaching and mentoring people. And I think during the early days, I wasn't really interested in doing that because I just wanted to focus on like our lane of just like running our businesses. But now, like I think after spending so much time working at a computer, I really want to embrace getting out and actually talking to people physically. And not only just embrace it, like I crave it. Like I crave talking to people and connecting with people. So what we're going to do over the next little bit, the goal for our target for Screw the Under 5 is to help 1,000 entrepreneurs cross the $1 million a year mark, and so essentially create $1 billion of revenue. And in order to do that, we have to embrace like more of a high touch coaching mentality as far as what we do. And so previously we're just focusing on creating courses, driving traffic to courses, generating revenue. Now we want to start moving more towards like identifying really interesting entrepreneurs and actually working with them to help them move from like that 6-figure mark towards a 7-figure mark. That's what I'm really passionate about right now.
Well, $1 billion, I mean, that's a lot of money. So.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And I think we could do it. I don't think we can do it. I know we're going to do it. Sure.
So when someone goes to screwthe9to5.com, what should they expect? What is the website like? Is someone like, who's your target customer in that case? Like, when someone gets, who are you looking at for? And then when they get there, what should they expect?
Yeah, so generally there's a few different types of people who follow us. The first are like people who, and I think it's because of our brand name, the people who are looking to get started. Absolutely, they come in for sure, and they have an opportunity to read a lot of like initial content to get them to understand like, here's how to start a business, that kind of stuff. Then we have the people who've already got started and they're making some money, but they're not full time in their business, right? And we have a lot of stuff to help them kind of move towards that. A big issue I think a lot of people have is that they'll get like a bunch of clients at first, and then all of a sudden like they get busy focusing on those clients that they stop focusing on the other aspects of their business, like promotion, marketing, that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden like a couple clients go away and they're like, oh crap, now I'm down to a couple clients again. This is crazy. And they try and get more clients just to repeat the process. So we try and break those people out of that to get them focusing in on marketing and moving towards creating more scalable type offerings. That's what's going to help them move beyond 6 figures and move up towards 7. And then we have the people who are who are in that 6-figure type mark, making, less than $500,000 a year and between 100,000, $500,000 a year. And they're looking to kind of go to the next level. And they're the people I love talking with, mostly just because we can kind of talk about much more high level type things, like what we discussed before with traction, talking about like how we go about hiring people now, how we go about firing people, how we go about growing that right type of team and getting them to be more productive, more high level marketing strategies, that kind of stuff. So we're pretty broad in the approach, but that's just a reality when you have a broad brand like Screw the 9 to 5. You're gonna attract a lot of different people.
Do you think that the reason that you like talking to those people who are in that mid 6-figure range is because they are already doing something and they're just trying to make that better instead of someone else that's taking the bowl of spaghetti, still throwing it against the wall, and they don't know which thing's going to stick yet? And you like that because you can really pinpoint on something, or why do you think you like working with these people?
I think a lot of people who are first getting started have to go through a lot of identity changing in order to get to a certain point where they feel like they're an entrepreneur. Like they're kind of like trapped in the stuff we were talking about at the start, which is like hard work equals money mentality, right? And so it's difficult to kind of explain to them like, actually, this is how it works instead. They're all just like trying to like do everything, like what you said, throw spaghetti against a wall and try and get results by just trying all these different things. A phrase comes to mind, shiny object syndrome, which I'm sure you've heard of. Like those people are very likely to get caught up in that. Whereas the people who have managed to get beyond 6 figures and have done it in a way that's like quite scalable, those people have shifted their identity. They believe that they are entrepreneurs. They believe that this is their life, like they've drawn a line in the concrete, so to speak, and they've stepped over it and they're not going back anymore. So it's much easier to work with those people because you don't have to change their belief systems as much. You just have to focus on like, hey, we're going to try this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and everything's going to like grow from there.
And they value money a lot better, a lot more.
Yeah.
And they're not like nickeling and diming you. So when you say to them, oh, this thing costs $2,000, they're like, cool, we see the value that we're going to get out of that. The shiny object syndrome that you mentioned, I call them LinkedIn founders, people who just want to say that they started a business on LinkedIn so that they can get people to like their posts. And I believe that like becoming an entrepreneur, in quotes, like has become a buzzword. It's like this sexy thing. It's like, tell me you own a business in 5 years, and that's what we should celebrate. Because in theory, starting a business, going to get your business license, that's a really easy process.
Yeah.
Keeping at something is something very, very difficult. Is there a tool or a set of tools that you like to use to run your business?
I mean, we just have like all the regular sort of marketing tools, like we use Infusionsoft as a CRM. We use ClickFunnels a lot actually for creating like these automated funnels to help us scale. Um, then we use Asana for project management, and then Slack for communication with our team. We are looking now. What we're doing now is actually moving towards growing more of a local team, which is kind of like funny because we would never have wanted to do that if we went back 5 years ago, because we wanted to live overseas and be remote and stuff like that. But now I understand it's far more effective to work with people in person. And we want to move towards that. I mean, that's my opinion. That's what I've found. I don't, maybe some other people prefer having that remote type situation, but I've just found that from what we do, when you actually get to sit down, sit next to people and actually communicate with them in person, it just gets through a lot faster, in my opinion, instead of like waiting on Slack for like an hour and then getting, like it's frustrating.
Well, I think when people think about remote, and I've done both, right? The problem with the people next to you is there's a lot of distractions. The problem with Slack and remote work is that there's a lot of distractions. Is that person really working? And so I think it's, figure out what works best for you.
Totally.
What's something that you haven't done in business or in life that you want to do?
In business,
So maybe like a bucket list item, or like, do you want to jump out of a plane? You've never done that. Something crazy.
I haven't jumped out of a plane. I've done bungee before, but I just feel like I can do all that stuff. You know what I mean, Zach? Like, I feel like I'm gonna do all this stuff, but like I don't. Like, I think people who have like bucket lists generally have those bucket lists because they're only going to have a certain amount of time to like do that when they retire. You know what I mean? Like, but I feel like if I want to go skydive, I'll go skydiving today if I want to. Like, I don't care. I'll take the day off and go do that. So I don't really like have anything that's really big on the top of my mind. One thing that here's one thing I really want to do for business wise is I want to do this thing, and because I'm quite like a healthy type person, and I have quite a passion for trekking and also traveling and things like that. I've trekked in Nepal and Papua New Guinea and like a few different places. And I want to do this thing called Trekking for Transformation. And what it would be is to take a bunch of entrepreneurs, maybe like no more than 10 entrepreneurs, take them to say like a place like Nepal and go out to like an area like the Annapurna Sanctuary, and we can do a trek out there. And the whole concept of it is to each day we accomplish something by trekking to a new location. Physically, we accomplish something. Then at the end of the day, we talk about aspects of life that they want to transform. And then once the trek's over, I then want to like have a third area, which is like more of like a non-profit type approach. So hook up with some kind of non-profit in the area and go and actually focus on like the giving aspects of what it means to be an entrepreneur. So that way we can kind of help people sort of step outside of their own selfish desires to make money in their business and actually focus on giving, which is the most important thing in my opinion. So that's one thing that I've been thinking about lately. I'm super passionate about like all that kind of stuff, and I just have a feeling it's going to come to fruition in the future.
Love it. I'm reading North by Scott Jurek. It's a story. I don't know if you've read it, but it's fairly new. I guess Scott Jurek ran the Appalachian Trail. I'm assuming he finishes. I'm about halfway through the book, and he's trying to speed run it. So he's trying to become like the fastest guy ever in like 45 days or something like that. And it's very interesting. Half the book is told from his side of the story, and the other half is from his wife's perspective, who helps transport him around the 2,100, I think 89 miles up and down the Appalachian Trail. Really interesting stuff. I think you would like this book. It's North.
Write it down.
And it's probably a month old. I swim laps at my local YMCA, and so I have a waterproof iPod. So I just put it on, listen, and
that's a great idea.
It's I've read 4 books in like a month because of it. One of them.
How's your retention? How's the retention when you're swimming?
The only thing that sucks is if you want to go back to something that you miss.
Yeah.
The shuffle, for whatever reason, takes you to the previous chapter. So, like, let's say I'm at the end of 8 and I want to go back to 8. I had to start all over, and if it's an hour long, I would miss it. So that's the only thing that sucks. So if that happens, I then go home and listen to it on my iTunes instead. Yeah. But other than that, it's pretty good.
Good idea.
Yeah. Anything else that I've missed that you want to talk about?
I don't think so. I think like the main thing for anyone kind of listening in, like whatever situation you're currently in, if you're like that person getting started, or maybe you've gotten started but you sort of hit this point of capacity, or maybe like you're that person who's like at 100,000 and beyond looking to go to a million. I would say that the answers are not found out there. Like all the answers are found in here. They're all in here, every single one of them. Like we have the same brain that Warren Buffett has, right? So we have the same ability to do what Warren Buffett does. We just haven't found it yet. We haven't worked it out in here yet. And so I would just say for anyone, just explore yourself more than exploring everyone else, and get out of that like shiny object comparisonitis type situation. All the answers are found in you.